always get serious when you hear that. I'm on the record. So, yeah, it's been a minute since I've done lead class and conference. I've been traveling a lot, and I thought, there's some new people in here. I have some things that I want to talk about, and then I thought I would also give an opportunity to ask some questions too. So yeah, so we can just start there. But maybe first, announcements. First thing is that we're in the process of finalizing our mentorship program for next year. And there's one person dropped out yesterday. And if you're interested in maybe learning a little bit more about Ashtanga yoga and how to teach and alignment, anatomy, vinyasa count, all of that stuff, reach out to me. There's one spot left. And so if you want to do it, you're more than welcome to. I can give you some details on it. That's number one. And you can do this virtually and in person, in real life. Second thing is next year there is going to be a bunch of like intensives here. So because Columbus is no longer part of our, part of this umbrella, and Sarah's doing her own thing, everything will be hosted here. So there's going to be a lot more people here, like throughout the year. Just like, it's basically like once a month that either level 1, 2, or 3 is going to come and visit us. And then in addition to that, there'll be a collective with several people, and this is in April. And then we have a primary series intensive too that's in October. That's basically going to cover all of the primary series, which would be very good for a lot of you. And then, and I'm doing that with Marla, and I'm also doing that with Dana Guerrera. And so those two are going to help support me in that primary series workshop. Also, and this is like my big ask for you before I start on my agenda. So like so Columbus is no more part of the associated with us. And we still love them, and they're our friends and all of that stuff. That's beside the point. We wish them well. But my time really needs to be devoted here so I can spend more time with my family and also spend more time with people here as well. And so I'm committed to doing that. We also, with our online stuff, we're trying to grow the evening and also the morning as well, both of them really. And we have a potential to maybe start like a noon thing as well with some of the level 3 people, which this is going to be coming up, and possibly level 2 people as well. And these are people that are committed to teaching and going to be online, and it'll be awesome. But so we're thinking about maybe adding those classes around the noon time so that it might be better. It's like evening and it's like evening or 6 o'clock when you do that in like Europe and stuff. And I have a lot of European students. But my big ask of you is that if you find the online or in person thing valuable, which I think we have an amazing community filled with a bunch of people, invite your friends. We're really in this period of growth, there's more people in Savannah and there's also more people online. And I think the teachers that back it up are solid teachers, and honestly, we're just trying to support them and support the whole kind of our whole community. So if you can find it in your heart to maybe suggest a friend to come, I would appreciate it. That's my big ask of you. So before I get started on some of the stuff that I'm going to address, is there any questions from anyone that wants to point us in a particular direction?
So I have a question I've been dying to ask you since we've been reconnected.
Okay.
So same thing with online, and I guess your announcements already kind of led to what I think I'm going to hear. But as far as defining parampara in a modern Ashtanga world, I can only have so many teachers because obviously everybody teaches very differently.
Sure.
And of course, time and logistics, confine me. So how do you define parampara right now as you see it? And where do you see it going with online and virtual?
Yeah. So for everyone who doesn't know, parampara is it's a word that represents teacher, student, teacher, and it being passed down teacher, student, teacher, student. And it's not a word that gets thrown around. We actually did a T-shirt of it one time. And but it basically is like how we receive yoga today is because there's a line of people that have taught teacher, student, teacher, student, teacher, student. And this is very important. So, I mean, to be honest with you, Marianne, you're going to have to navigate that on your own. And you'll have to figure out who resonates with you the best. And you'll have to figure out who you're going to listen to. I know that there is a bunch of amazing voices and people that are connected to this community, but the community at large as well. There's people that have amazing practices and very, very skilled teachers. You have to figure out, like, who you're going to listen to. That's part of it. And sometimes it's just because, hey, there's Ashtanga here, so you got to listen to this guy. Like this is the only this is all you guys get. Sorry, everyone here. Or I mean, there's other yoga here, but there's not Ashtanga. So, but also the cool thing is that a lot of my teachers, even though that they might come from a different place, they're all really they've learned from me. I've told them what is important. They have to figure out what's important for them. And a lot of times, like, you feel this essence of like my teaching through other people's teaching as well. And that's not really what I consider like an actual teacher. Like these the people that are here, they're holding space, they're helping you, they're trying to be helpful, they're supporting me, they're supporting you guys and the community at large as they fill in and all that kind of stuff. And that seems like a little different thing to me. But you have to find a teacher that you can listen to and someone who you respect. And I think someone who upholds the tradition is important to me. And you have to be like, I'm going to listen to this person, or I'm going to show up to this class. And I think the best thing to do is potentially try other teachers and see, like, what's the difference, or what's the vibe like, or what's the community like, and how's this teacher interact with me? And is he or she upfront with me? I prefer not to, in my life, I prefer not to have like yes men and women. It's not good for me. And I try and be like not a yes man for people. I'm not going to tell you things are good when they're not. Like, I can encourage you to and inspire you to practice and stay motivated. I can see the best version of yourself, and I'm trying to help you get that. And I teach some details, but also I teach like broad vision stuff. Like, I teach in a very broad way as well, like personal development and spirituality, and like there's obviously an asana focus, but like that doesn't matter to I mean, we're doing that, but it doesn't matter to me. And so each person has sort of like their own flavor, and whoever you resonate with, like, you got to just dig in. You gotta, for lack of better words, like, go on a yoga vacation and visit them, and communicate with them back and forth, and telling them what's happening. Like, I mean, I can see a lot in person and I can see a lot online, and I can see your commitment, but like I'm trying to empower people to show up, not for me. Like, you're not here for me, folks. Like, you're coming here because, like, I'm supporting you on your journey. You're coming for you. Like, it's not about me. And if it ever becomes about me, then like, you should tell me, because it's like not appropriate at all, in my opinion. It's like, what we're really trying to do as teachers is just guide people, and we have to have a level of humility, and we have to have a level of honesty with the students, and we also have to have a practice too, that is supporting our teaching. So you just have to find who you're going to resonate with, and like, I think that it's not just the teacher. I think that it is also like sort of I've said it before, the vibe of the community, where you say, like, hey, you know what, like, these are people that I respect and I care about, and people who I look up to. I mean, we have a lot of amazing people here, but other people have communities too, you know? And I think that the real unique thing about this one specifically is that really, like, I don't care who you are. Like, I don't care what you do for a living. I don't care any of that stuff. The real thing that I think is amazing, and maybe it's a little bit because of that philosophy, it's like you can be whoever you want to be, and I'm still going to support you. You know, like there's no thing that you could do to like not be um, like important to me. You know, like you guys are important. You show up, you support my teaching. I'm supporting you. Like there's this reciprocity between the two things, and you got to find that, and that's like a really hard thing. And when you do find it, it's special. You know, like when a teacher asks more of you or asks you to work on your stuff, and you know, like I don't really ever want someone to pat me on the back and say like, hey, you know, you're doing a good job when you're not doing a good job. You know, like this is super important. And the sad thing is that, you know, and I've had, you know, several teachers over um, my life over the last 20 years, is that they serve their purpose for a certain period of time. You know, like Laruga was one of my teachers. She was amazing. She was awesome. I mean, she wasn't my friend. She was my teacher. She taught me all of the details of the practice, and it was very valuable. And she asked more of me than I was giving, and that was good for me at the time. And then I found Matthew Darling, and I spent like several years like apprenticing under him. And I still really consider him a teacher. If I needed something, he would pick up the phone immediately, and he would talk me through it. Or if I wanted to talk about a pose or any of this kind of stuff, you know, or talk about sobriety. He's a sober person as well. He's in my book and stuff like that. But and then, you know, like when I started going to see Sharat, like I really realized that, you know, like he's a great human being, and I'm trying to be like him. You know, he's got thousands of people who look up to him. You know, several of them are like me. A couple hundred people are like level 2 authorized teachers, and we look up to him because he's a good human. And we go and we travel and see him. And I don't need, and I think the real thing is that you don't really need more than two voices in your head. I have Matthew, I have Sharat, and they're there for me. And I think that this is like a really, really good thing. I kind of like have my home teacher, someone I can talk to. And then I also have someone I only see like once or twice a year, maybe on tour and then in Mysore kind of thing. And it's hard. And the reason why it's hard, because you've invested time and energy into a teacher. And then what happens is like sometimes like the lesson is over. Like my lesson with Laruga, it was over. It finished in, you know, 2008, but she still means a lot to me, you know, but I don't listen to her anymore, you know, like, and it's not because of disrespect. It's just like, she's not my teacher. I don't look at her post. I don't watch her YouTube. I don't, you know, I'm not looking at Kino's. I'm not looking at Tim's. I'm not looking at David's. Like that stuff doesn't matter to me, you know, like I'm trying to follow my students, watch my students instead of like watching what other teachers are doing. And it's hard. That's the hard part, where you have to say like, hey, I'm going to pay attention to this person, and really dialing into that. And, you know, and maybe going on a retreat or coming to an intensive or coming for a few days in Savannah or Miami or wherever it is, doesn't matter. And getting what you need. And I think that I think the things that are important to me is that the teacher is available, the teacher is open, and the teacher's not a yes man, and they're upholding the tradition. And because the tradition feels important to me, you know, and it being passed down from teacher to student, like gives us the tradition. It's like you know, you're able to make modifications in my world. It's just that we are trying to eventually one day do the real thing, you know, and be on that journey. And modifications are fine, but upholding the tradition, like we're trying to dial people into the tradition, is important to me. Because like, you know, and from my philosophy, and I know this is a little bit of a rant, but it's like once you start making so many edits that it just gets away and it gets away from its essence, and it loses its power. And so that specific thing is also really important to me, which is part of the reason why like Matthew is very traditional, and then also Sharat is the tradition as well. And so this is pretty important. But yeah, it's hard to navigate. So find people that you resonate with, invest time and energy into them, have open communication with your teacher with regard to injuries, how you're feeling, and showing up to class and those kind of things. And I think you'll get clearer on it. Yeah. Yeah, it's easy because of Zoom, like you'd be like, hey, I want to join this person's class, or it's like got OmStars. There's like you could have 100 teachers if you wanted, like there's a lot. Or you go to Allo Moves and like there's 100 teachers on there. You could have 100 teachers, and really you're just looking for someone who you can invest time and energy into, and if they resonate, like deepen the connection. Yeah. Okay, other questions? Did all that make sense? Yeah. Okay. All right. So, we have newer people in here, but so I was going to talk maybe a little bit about the, tradition. And tradition is, not only some of the stuff that I just talked about, but also the Tristana method. Like there's these 3 looking points, which I think we need to bring into focus. There's actually like 5 points, but we say that there's only 3. The first one is that I've been noticing that there's not a lot of breath with sound, and we really just need to get better with breath with sound. And this comes from a restriction of the throat. And so you have to close the valve a little bit, and you have to make a little bit of sound so your ears can hear it. And this is important. It doesn't have to be so that the whole room hears it, but I think we could all, including myself, do a better job at like breathing. And it needs to be full. It needs to be roughly the same amount of time, inhale and exhale. But there's this little restriction in the glottis that is like really important, and it makes a sound kind of like a hissing sound at the back of your throat. When we do this, like it not only it creates heat, but it gives you an opportunity to listen to your breath. And we want to tune into our breath. We want to see what is happening inside. Now, you're not trying to create a bunch of tension here, but I think really the most important thing is that there is some sound. So there has to be like a little bit of a closing of the valve that happens. And if you do this properly, then the practice, like you're kind of warmed up for your struggle pose or the things that you might struggle with a little bit better. And if you're mouth breathing, you're not going to be warmed up properly. And it also dysregulates the nervous system. And so like breathe in and out of your nose and breathe with sound, folks. Like, I say it during lead class a bunch, like invest time and energy to paying attention to that. That's number 1. Now, with breath, there's also this thing called bandhas, and I'm not going to go into an explanation of what bandhas are, but there's 3 of them: Jalandhara, Uddiyana, and Mula. Mula being like at the base of your pelvic floor, like basically it's considered like your anus or sphincter muscle, where like that area gets contracted. Uddiyana bandha is like a scooping that happens under your belly button, so it's this slightly lifting up, and then Jalandhara is when you stop breathing and you hold your breath, which we don't actually do when we doing our physical practice. We might do this when we do pranayama, but we do not do it during our practice because we're trying to continue to breathe. If your breath is rattled during the practice, you will not find bandhas. If you don't go to the bathroom and also breathe properly, you will not find bandhas. Bandhas are not necessarily something that you do. There's something that happened as a result of other things that you're doing. And that thing is really breathing deeply. Okay. So I'm going to leave that at that. The next one is drishti. And drishti is is really important. Your eyes take in terabytes of information. Like they actually measured it, and your mind has to forget. It's required to forget your surroundings. Like that's why you don't recollect like the exact thing that happened, like this is also why like if you had to give a report to like a police officer or something, like you might not recall it the exact same way that it happened, or even other people experienced it. And they take in so much information that our job in our yoga practice is to make sure that we continue to look at the correct place. We're not supposed to look at our neighbor. We're not supposed to acknowledge, like, even when they walk in the room. I know this is like, like you always say hi to the people around you. Like, I get this, but like, we're not trying to be off of our mat when we're on our mat. Like, we're really trying to breathe so that we hear it. We're trying to focus our eyes so that we're paying attention to what we're doing internally instead of like all of this external stuff, because there's so much stuff going on that it's just so easily to be distracted, and you don't want to be distracted. You're trying to hone in attention, focus, and presence on your mat while you're doing all of our yoga practice. And it's very easy because of Zoom. You throw the camera up there, your computer, and then you can see like I'm adjusting people, and you might be looking at the camera, and also in the room you might be watching me or watching other people. And our job is that if you're not paying attention, is to keep on bringing it back to focus until you're able to be on your mat when you're on your mat. And this is way easier said than done. And the default gaze when you're practicing, if you don't know where you're supposed to look, is just down the tip of the nose, folks. It's just a soft gaze down the tip of the nose, which basically brings, for me, it's like kind of like looking down my beak, so it would be like here. And I'm not actually looking at the tip of the nose. You don't have to cross your eyes or any of that kind of stuff. I don't think that's appropriate. You see some Ashtangis and it's like they're actually looking at their nose and they're like cross-eyed. And my mom told me, like, back in the 80s, if I crossed my eyes and someone hit me in the back, they would be stuck like this. And I'm like, I'm never doing that. Like, I'm scared of it. Have we heard this before? Yeah. It was like a big thing in the 80s. It was like, don't do that. All right. Someone hits you and then your eyes are stuck like that, which I don't know if that's necessarily true, but I do think that it just needs to be a soft gaze down the tip of the nose so that there's no strain in the eyes. Okay. Now there's other ones, thumbs, the middle finger, the third eye, the belly button, the big toes, the right, left, up, these are all kind of like the drishtis. But when in doubt, just stay focused on your mat down the tip of the nose. And I think this just makes it way more practical. And I think it makes it way more accessible for people as well. Okay. We got that. The last one is asana. So we're supposed to be paying attention to the asanas while we do it. Duh. And if you don't do this, a lot of times you can hurt yourself. And I'm not asking you to hurt yourself. You shouldn't be asking yourself to hurt yourself or pushing yourself so much that you're hurting yourself. Like, you can operate in this community. You can be exactly who you want to be. Authenticity in this community is one of our values, really. Like, you can be you, like I was talking about earlier. And so, you're pay attention to your poses while you're doing it. And then also eventually kind of coming into a little bit more focus of alignment, and all of that kind of stuff. And that's why we give adjustments to keep people safe or help deepen a posture so that we can get to other things. And with all of those, there's one more topic that needs to be discussed, and it's the vinyasa count. And that's what we did today. Like, when we're doing lead class, it's the vinyasa count. It was all the words that you didn't know. All right. All the Sanskrit words that you're like, what does that mean? Well, it's just like a fancy way of saying 1 to 28, 1 to 27. That's the highest I counted in Sanskrit. Everything else, the pose names were obviously in Sanskrit too, but when we're holding poses, we're counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in English. And when we're doing the movement with the breath, it's symbolized with Sanskrit counting. And that's what that was. You're supposed to stay with my count, which some of you were super good about this. And others of you, which I was paying attention, were not good at this today. And it's all good. I'm not trying to beat you up with the yoga practice, but we're trying to move like a school of fish, and trying to move together. And there's something really beautiful about the lead class and the vinyasa count, that if the teacher does it correctly, the teacher becomes less of an obstacle. Because one of the biggest things that you deal with when you're doing your yoga practice is that sometimes the teacher can be the obstacle. Sometimes they want to sit down and have a long discussion with you. I'm not sitting with you and having a long discussion. That you picked the wrong teacher. I give adjustments, I give little corrections. I might say 1 or 2 sentences. We talk a little bit or you share what's going on, but then I'm leaving it to you. This work is yours. I'm just supporting it. I'm not going to sit down and have a therapy session with you. All right. And teachers are known for doing this. And so like, and when we're doing our Mysore practice, we are also doing the vinyasa count that we did today. And it completes all of the learning, folks. Like you come to Mysore, you learn the poses one at a time or a couple at a time. And then you get more detail in the Mysore sessions, but then you get more detail when you come to lead class because you're sitting there going, because in Mysore, you're sitting there and learning sort of this broad sequence, you know, like, okay, well, here's the poses. Well, today I gave you how to move in and out of them, you know, which is extremely valuable. And so not coming to lead class seems like, you know, because there's, you know, people in our community and really all over the place where, you know, they're like, oh, I don't like lead class. I don't like lead class, but I don't not like lead class because like, I don't think the vinyasa count is important or not important. I don't like being told what to do. Is this oppositional defiance? I'm like, you know, like but I go anyways because it helps complete this circuit of understanding between poses and the movement in and out of them. And so lead class, like I say, it's mandatory, and it is. It really is, because if you don't do it, you don't have all of the proper information. And so, like, you know, I give people a hard time. I'm like, hey, tomorrow's mandatory and all that kind of stuff. And I'd say it kind of in a joking way. And, you know, like, if you can't make it, I get it. But it's like, make an effort to beat a lead class because it helps complete it. There's also times where we do part of the second series, you know, the part of the second series, and giving the vinyasa count for the second series is also important. Sometimes there's lead intermediate classes and things like that. And all of those things like make up this, you know, they make it so that you see the whole instead of just seeing like, okay, it's just these poses. I'm trying to get better at this and trying to get better at this. All of a sudden you start getting the thread between all of the postures. And I cannot stress it enough. It's important. It really is. And make an effort to be here. And if you can't make the morning one, it's fine. You can also try and come to the 6 p.m. one, which is really a half primary series class. Okay. Yeah. So either is better than none, for sure. And then we also, in addition to all of these things that I addressed, we also have this philosophy of Ashtanga yoga, which is Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. And I know we're short on time. There's not enough time to, you know, really talk about this at length. But really what we're trying to do in our yoga practice with all of those meditation techniques is trying to gain presence. And if you look at the first Yoga Sutra, it really is asking us to be here now, like on our mat, be here now. We're studying yoga, be present on your mat. And the second Yoga Sutra, which is our dilemma, but also the way that we should be approaching our practice is through discrimination, really. And what I mean by that is like you look at what your mind is telling you on a consistent basis. And science has already told us that 98% of the things that you think about are negative. They're actually negative self-talk, 98% of them. And 85% of them are on a reel. You say them over and over again. So if you actually wrote them down, like for a couple of weeks or whatever, you would notice that it's kind of the same exact story. You get triggered, and then it starts all of these negative self-talk. And 85% of them are on like a loop. And our dilemma in the yoga practice is to not control that, but to just let that be, because you're not going to eliminate those things. Your negative self-talk, it's going to be there. I'm sorry. Our job is to just let it be. And because what happens is like, as a result of this, we want ourselves to be different. And as a result of like ourselves, like trying to be different, there's friction, and the friction creates aggravation, and the aggravation happens in your mind. It's actually better to just accept the voices for what they are, but also not believe them, you know? And this is the discrimination thing. Is this truthful? Is this based in my trauma? Is this based in other things that like are being brought up? Or is this false? And that's the discrimination. This is not me. This is what my mind says, because you are actually not your mind. And in our yoga practice, if we use the Tristana method, what happens is you have this ability to look at things through a different lens, and you say, like, that's not me. Like, my mind is just saying that based off of previous experience, because the biggest obstacle to yoga is your memory and of how things used to be, or trauma, or any of these kind of things. Memory of those things, that's the biggest obstacle. And that's what creates this 95% of this negative self-talk. And so when you're dealing with the negative self-talk, you don't have to wrestle with it. Just let it be and stop listening to it. It's just like, it's not important. And go back to the positive, like good wolf, bad wolf. Stop paying attention to the bad wolf. It's there. It's still talking, has no weight, or it has no value. And so you look at it and you say, thank you for your opinion. I'm going to choose to do something different. I never can wake up. You know how many people have told me, like, I can't wake up in the morning, like, I'm not a morning person. Like, I hear this, maybe, I mean, if I had a penny for every time someone said this to me, it would be like, I'd have $1 million right now. Like, everyone says it to me. Oh, I wish I could do my story. I just can't wake up. What happens though, that story, you start realizing that's just a bunch of bullshit. Like, sorry, and you say, like, okay, well, if I set my life up and it's important to me, I can find a time to do it. And that's what we're listening to, instead of like, oh, I'm not a morning person, like, oh, well, you've just defined yourself as not a morning person. And I've been around people that have said that my entire life. And what happens is that they end up being a morning person because this stuff has value. And that's just one example of many things that could come up, where you just say, like, it's not true. I'm not defined by this thing, that I tell myself. And this is really the struggle. This is what the second Yoga Sutra is really talking about. And the cool thing is, and I'll be brief here, because you could spend a whole day on these, but like the next Yoga Sutra says, well, if you bring the mind under sort of like this equanimity, or under management, let's say, then what you do is you see your true self. You see the essence of who you are, which I'm talking about here. It's like you see the good in you instead of like hearing the negative self-talk. And then if the Yoga Sutras gives a warning too, and it says, if you don't actually bring this stuff under management and like discern, or like through discernment, and look at it and say, like, hey, this isn't me, and like, that's not what I am, and all this kind of stuff, then you believe what you think. And it basically outlines how you should not believe anything you think, because it's all based in misperception or trauma or memory or all these things. And that's not actually the person that you are. And man, it's like this beautiful sort of essence of like, okay, well, we have this yoga practice with the Tristana method and all of these things. Like, are we using it to accomplish what I just talked about? And if we are using it to, then we're doing the right thing. Like, this is the end, like where we get to the end, and it's like, oh yeah, I'm a better person. I believe in myself. I don't have these things that get brought up, or if they do get brought up, I know how to deal with them. Because I've also been around a lot of people that don't even have this awareness, and sometimes it's sad to see, but we have this tool that we can use to operate differently in the world. And we need more of us, honestly. It's like, in our society, we need more of the yoga people, this awareness. Yeah. So I've been thinking a lot about that, and partly because like I'm preparing presentations for workshops and things like that. And I just think that really honing in on the meditation and all of this stuff, like, it really is important, because it helps us achieve the greater goal. It's not the Marichasana D, although that journey is important. It's not the Supta Karmasana or the Kapotasana or the back bend that, is the actual journey. Like that journey is important, and it reveals a lot and helps us like kind of look at everything that we need to look at to achieve things. But that's not really the goal. The goal is that we're better people. We're able to look society in the eyes and say, like, I'm doing the next right thing. I'm trying to be better for me so I can be better for you. I'm trying to learn how to love me, and so that I can love you, and we need more of that in the world. We really do. And just don't confuse the means with the end. Like, the end is important. The end is that we're better people. It's not that we do a drop back. Like, I don't care if you do dropbacks. It doesn't matter to me. But if I see an ability and I see someone who can go on the sort of this trip, this excursion to achieve something, I'm going to ask you to do it, because that stuff added up over long periods of time equals we operate differently in the world, but don't confuse that with being a better person. It's like, the poses don't inherently make you a better person. More poses does not mean more advanced. It means that we're progressing through a sequence of postures and opening our bodies up, and no one's asking you to push yourself over the edge. No one's asking you to hurt yourself. No one's asking you to do any of that stuff. We're asking you to honor yourselves and work hard, because you know that you can be in a different place if you continue to do that. So that's all I got for today. I'm sorry I went over 10 minutes. Hopefully it made a little bit of sense. And I'm on a trip. Melissa will be teaching, and I will be back on election day to make sure that I vote. Thank you all for being here. Yeah, thanks for being students. I appreciate you all a lot.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
Thank